Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today I've got Bobbi, who is a coach among many, many other things. So thank you so much for taking the time and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you say you do loads of different things. Mm-hmm. So when you were at school, did you have a dream of what you wanted to do and what you wanted to be?
Oh yeah, I was so obnoxious. So I went to nerd camp when I was like 11 or 12 years old. And this is going to age me, but my first year was the year that The Truman Show came out. And I took a class on advertising. And the guy who was teaching it was like this dirty hippie. He like wouldn't wear like clothes with any brand names on it. And we went to see The Truman Show in theaters. And like a baby psychopath, I was like, I want to go into advertising and like do product placement and whatnot. And it really like lit a bug in me. So I knew when I was like 11, I was like, I want to go to Harvard and I want to go into advertising. And I did it.
Wow, so you went to Harvard?
Yeah.
So everyone talks about Harvard. What makes it so good?
Oh, it's so cold. It's an Ivy League school. I didn't mean to go the Harvard route immediately. This is why we get made fun of. What makes it so good? I mean, it's just, you learn from some of the best in the field. You're around the best and the brightest.
Yeah.
But you're just around ambitious people, which is really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I knew what I wanted to. I'm not doing that. Spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
But I knew to answer
the
the question, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I went and did it, and flamed out really quickly.
Right. Okay.
Which set me on the path to what I'm doing today. But this won't come as a shock to you, but corporate advertising was not a super friendly place for young Black women. Mm-hmm. Many moons ago when I was in it, and so I ran away, eat, pray, love style. Lived in my sister's couch in London while I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do in this big scary world.
But you came to England?
Yeah, my sister lives in London.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was just like, I'm not going to stay here, she was like, well, come hang out for a little bit and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you as a family in the US base, and then you started, your sister obviously came over to the UK. Is it just you and your sister now in the UK?
Yeah, just me and my sister, yeah.
Okay, why the UK? Because you get a lot of people from the UK going, I want to go over that way.
Well, she moved here after grad school, and then I, like I said, was bumming around and ended up winning the best backpacking job in the world. So I went from not knowing what I was doing, sleeping on her couch in London, to like, oh my gosh, I won this thing. I have to fly back to the States, repack, and be in Australia in 10 days. And that was supposed to last about 3 months, and I ended up staying in Australia and New Zealand for 2 years.
And what was the job?
Basically jumping out of planes and climbing mountains and writing about it, which is wild because I'm afraid of heights.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you go up the mountains?
Yeah, I had to. So like, you know how cave diving is like one of the most dangerous things?
Yes.
We cave dived. And then like we got out and I was like, oh my God, the nightmare's over. And then we had to abseil down a mountain, a waterfall. It was very stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never do anything of this again. Had I understood what I was getting into, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But during that time, I was working with a lot of travel agencies and things like that. And this was like back in the heyday of travel blogging. And I was, redesigning my website and doing all this stuff. And people kept asking me to kind of lean on my branding experience, because I was a brand strategist back in my advertising days, and my design experience. And I realized I was like leaving money on the table because people wanted me to like make their websites or help them with X, Y, and Z. And so in the back of a camper van in Australia, I started what is now my agency, and I started it as a Band-Aid. I always meant to go back to advertising.
Right. Okay.
And here I am.
Here you are. So we said at the start of the program, you're a coach in many things. So do you just give us a rundown of what the coaching is and then the many other things are?
Yeah. So I started the agency many moons ago. And one day, maybe in 2018, 2019, a friend of mine asked me to come run another agency in Bristol. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm already doing something. I'm happy in my beautiful home office. I don't want to leave the house. And the carrot that she dangled in front of me was, if you do this, will let you run an incubator for women of color who want to break into tech. And don't tempt me with a good time. So I got to design and run an incubator while running this agency on a temporary basis until they could find someone to do it. And that's what got me into coaching, because even back then I was like, I don't need to have any more jobs. I have one that's taking up a lot of time. So they actually paid for me to get certified. And I realized I was doing this anyway. I worked with at the time a lot of really passion-based women entrepreneurs of color, and it was never just a logo, you know what I mean? Like the work we did was never just a logo, never just a website, and there was coaching happening. I just didn't really know that I had a framework for it and could build on that and have more impact. So that was a really pivotal experience for me. I always wanted to work with people who had a sense of purpose, who weren't just selling something for the sake of selling it. And then when the pandemic hit and the world fell apart, you know, in my friend group, in my sister's friend group, I'm kind of like the dirty hippie. I'm the only one that doesn't have a graduate degree. And my WhatsApp was blowing up with like people asking me for help and asking me for advice. And one of the things that I realized, on top of, oh my God, I'm so tired and I am just one person and there's no way to really do this in a way that I felt was going to help people in the way that they deserved, that they needed to be helped. It really lit a flame in me in terms of realizing, like, we talk a lot about the gender pay gap, but we don't talk a lot about the gender support gap and how different the advice and enablement women get versus men.
Yeah.
So that led me to act like I had more hours in the day than I did, and found a startup.
Oh, wow.
And really try to change the coaching model. So shrink it, make it something that's accessible to women, that they can access and use without the scrutiny from maybe a supervisor that doesn't think that they need coaching, or almost penalizes them for trying to get that help that they really deserve. Yeah. So we've got the design agency, that's one hat. We've got the coaching startup, that's another hat. And every now and then I'll parachute into a corporation or an organization to run an incubator.
Right, okay.
Or to lead like leadership sessions and help people figure out what they want to do with their lives and how they want to do it.
So in a sense, because you touched on at the beginning about the corporates and not liking it and da. So do you find that sort of like that's never left you as a point of you want to go back in and then go and help, then become better in what they are, or are you more of a champion of the SMEs? I
think we disallow ourselves the opportunity to be human in very structured environments, right? So it's no longer that corporations treat us like cogs in a wheel. We kind of treat ourselves like that. So it is really nice to be able to like go in wearing like stupid shoes and crazy hair and being like, you don't have to live like this, you know what I mean? And like you can like actually be a person and thrive in an environment that kind of strips the humanity from you. Not every corporation does that, but you can kind of see the light come back into people's eyes when you know, say like, why are you here? And help them figure out why they're here and figure out ways that, you know, they can get up and actually really enjoy going to work.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer that every job has to be passion filled. I don't think that's reasonable.
No, and I don't think, and that there's a big misstep between passion and purpose as well. You know, go and do your passion. It's like, but you might not be any good at it.
Right.
You might be passionate about something, but it's not necessarily the thing that you build your life around either.
Exactly. And people deserve to be able to be bad at things as well.
They need the room to make mistakes.
Yeah. So when I think about work and helping people with their relationship to work, which is a lot of what I do, it's like, it's okay if that's not like what wakes you up in the morning, right? Like, it's okay if you just want to have a job and then like use that to enable you to live your life in really fulfilling ways that are not related to a paycheck.
Correct.
You know? So I think, you know, even though it sounds like I do so many different things, for me at least, it all revolves around this wheel of like, we are not put on this earth to suffer. No. I certainly wasn't put here to suffer.
No, we're not. And I think that's it. I think for me, that's the whole focus behind purpose people is that we want to inspire people to live out purpose, but purpose isn't about everybody being an entrepreneur, because as you said, you can work for someone else and just do your paycheck, but your purpose is running a football thing for young kids that don't get the opportunity to play, and you're setting it up and you're building it, and you know it's never going to be a Premier League football club, but it's going to be a well-known club because all the kids in the area go and play there.
Yeah.
You know, so for me it's and the thing there is that that's your purpose, and you can become passionate about that, but not the other way around. I think that's where we get into trouble, where we say follow your passion, and it's like, yeah, but you might be passionate about ballet, for example, but you've just not got the moves to be able to do it.
But I think there's a danger also in, so sure, you know, there's a set of people where like you're really passionate about like underwater fire protection, but you're just not any good at it, right? And then you can be really passionate about something and kill that passion because you try to commercialize it, or because you try to
like artists,
monetize it. Well, yeah, and this is a huge project that I'm working on at the moment. It is, you know, I crochet. I love to crochet. I'm really good at it. Every time someone finds that out, they're like, oh my gosh, you should sell this. And I'm like, how about I don't, because I love doing it.
Yes.
I'm a very good photographer. I do not want to go out and be a wedding photographer because I love photography. I want that to be something that sparks joy in me. I don't want to, every time I pick up my camera, be like, God, I have to make the hours work around this. I have to. Like, I want some of my hobbies to be like, I get to do this.
It's interesting because obviously with my background in brand and photography and that sort of stuff, it's like you do it all day and then you come back and that's the last thing I want to do. Oh, why have you not got that? I was like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, and
I literally just want to switch off.
Yeah,
I like it, but actually, when I'm finished, I'm finished.
Yeah,
and, you know, I don't want to be tech support because I'm obviously working tech. So it's like, oh, you work in tech, can you fix my computer? No, I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
you know, if you want to speak to me between these hours, but after that I just want to do something else.
Yeah. And you know, one big thing that came out of the piece of research that I'm running for WECA is like, we have these artists that are really passionate about what they do and they're so talented, but they feel like they have to be dancing on TikTok and they have to know how to do SEO strategy and all of this stuff that's killing their passion.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that's killing their passion. And how do you think about then your purpose and your passion and your livelihood? Because that is just I think that's a different thing. And sometimes they all align. You know, some people really achieve like the middle of the Ikigai Venn diagram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not everyone has to be an Instagram star. Like, we don't have to do that. I know that's what's pushed and what's encouraged. Yeah,
because ultimately it goes back to what you're saying. Is that there's this thing of that you've got to monetize everything. And then if it's monetized, that's now deemed successful.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there is a lot of worth and worthiness in the pursuit of things just to pursue them.
Yeah. And also the aspect of just learning.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know, if you passionate about art, but you're not that great at it, but then you get better at it because you're doing it over and over and again. And then someone goes, oh, you should sell them. Well, that's not the point.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
And it cuts off that learning process, I think. You know, the way that people are encouraged to quickly put everything out there and document everything, it short circuits your growth path.
Yeah.
Right? And it makes you almost come out of it and observe it in a way that you wouldn't if you were just allowing yourself to be immersed in it and growing it.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, we wouldn't have things like Insecure and Abbott Elementary if the creators of those shows didn't get on YouTube making some really bad content at first and allowing themselves to just kind of like be weird, quirky black girls, and that world doesn't exist anymore, right? We don't have the ecosystem for that anymore, where you could just kind of build that up. But can you imagine if they wanted to do that now, and it was immediately the pressure to have 10,000, 20,000 followers on Instagram, and you couldn't just create to create?
Yeah. No, it's tough.
Yeah.
Really tough. So talk about, you know, because women in tech is obviously a big thing, and it's talked about a lot. But then you've got women in tech is quite low, and then women in tech with color is even lower, correct? So what percentage, do you have any stats on that in terms of the tech world? What in terms of how many women of color are actually in tech nowadays?
It's, I want to not focus on tech because it's endemic in so many, especially like fast moving, what are socially considered high powered, high respected industries. When we, like equal pay marks when, like, how far into another year a woman has to work to make what their male counterparts made the year before, right?
Yeah.
But we also have like Black women's equal pay day. We have Indigenous people's pay day, which is in like November. So that means working all through a calendar year and into the next one into November to make what a white male counterpart would have made.
Right. Okay.
Right. So when we talk about, getting numbers of women into tech, into politics, into wherever, we miss a part of the conversation where they're still not getting paid. There's no pay parity inside the organizations. No matter how much merit you come into an organization with, you're often treated as a tick box. So what's your quality of life, even if you get to like the pinnacle of your career, where people are kind of like, well, do they deserve to be there? Right? And that stuff isn't just externalized. You start to internalize it. Do I deserve to be here?
Yeah.
Should I be in this room? If nobody's listening to me, if nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or if I say something and everyone kind of ignores it, but then like a man next to me repeats it and everyone perks up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it can't just be we need to get more women into tech. We need to get more Black women into tech. It has to be like we need to get these people into these positions and we need to treat them well, and that they belong there. And I remember it might have been a year or two ago, we, kind of all the Bristol women in tech were just doing this circuit on International Women's Day, and it was exhausting because we were speaking on the panels, we were preaching to the choir, and at the end of the day, while we were like slumped over canapes, like, oh my God, this is so tired. Like, why aren't the men out here doing this, right? Why aren't the men out here actually advocating for us? I was kind of like, everyone knows the stats, everyone knows that we need diversity, but we haven't seen the change that we want to see, right? But when we think about bottom lines, women's businesses succeed at higher rates than men do. Businesses founded by people of color succeed at higher rates as well. And that phrase, girls be careful, boys be brave, right? A lot of investors and whatnot will think about women as risk averse.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily want to invest in women-founded businesses because women are scared. Women are really careful. Women are aware. Women are risk aware. And that's why our businesses actually succeed at higher rates, because we'll actually scan the horizon and take those things into account rather than just like move fast and break things. So I think the conversation, sorry for like the wide-ranging answer, like I think the conversation just needs to be more 360. It can't just be having the bodies in the room. It has to be actually listening to those voices. It has to actually be, believing that those people do belong there, right? There's nothing worse than having a boss that hired you that didn't want to hire you.
No, and I think that's the thing. I think that's the danger of this. When we talk diversity, the danger is it becomes a tick box that we've got a quota and we've got to hire this amount of people, and we've done what we've needed to do, and there's no conversation is, are they good at what they do? Are they great at what they do? And if they are, then let's reward them accordingly for how good they actually are. I've got the inversion problem of someone that I knew a while back in South Africa, where it's gone the other way, where the majority of the workforce is Black, and the argument is the white guy has got to prove himself to get into the organizations. And he's saying, I feel like a tick box. It's the same thing, that I've got to tick this, do this, do this, do this. Otherwise, they won't have me. But now he's become a tick box, and I'm like going, so where does the balance? And this is a good question for you. Where does the balance come where you're good enough? If you are good at what you do, then what needs to happen that both sides of the coin feel that they're being rewarded and compensated accordingly? Where do you feel that stops from being this tick box? What needs to happen to stop it being this tick box game, both sides of the coin, if you like? Because I've seen it now. Obviously I see it here, and now I'm getting reports in another country, and I'm like going, that's not solving the problem. All we're doing is just saying, if we've got equal numbers and then that's it. No. How do we celebrate if someone is amazing and obviously they're black and they're doing an amazing job and they are the CEO, then let's let them make them the CEO. What do you think's stopping that?
I mean, if I could just say, you know, everyone, you know, treat people like humans, then we'd solve a lot of problems. But that's not the reality. We can't erase centuries of racism and sexism and all of that stuff. And there are black people are not just being hired because they're black. You know what I mean? Like I think disabusing ourselves of the notion that someone is there just because they ticked a box. But it does go on. Happen.
But it does go on, doesn't it?
I think it's spoken about as if it's reality. Okay, so sorry to bring up Harvard again. When I got into Harvard, right?
Yeah.
I only applied to 2 schools. I only applied to Harvard and MIT. And I didn't want to even tell people that because like they had the reactions that they ultimately ended up having. I was a track star, cheerleading star, was on the debate team, was taking 4 years of Latin, was getting high enough on my SAT scores when I was 11 to get in to any good school. I didn't really talk about it because I was too busy having fun and like playing my sports and whatnot.
Yeah.
I only applied to 2 schools and I got into both of them. And when people found out, the first thing they said to me was like, oh, well, you got in because you're black.
No, that sucks.
So...
Yeah.
You know, I know people thought that I was a tick box.
Yeah.
I know people thought I was a tick box. And
that's what I'm trying to say is that I'm not, that's my point, right? You get in because you're good enough. That's that. So the opportunities need to be there.
So I think the problem is how we talk about it, because it is very easy to have like an anecdote about like one person and then extrapolate that. And then speak about it as if that's fact and if that's always happening, right? So I know that there is a lot of resentment around DEI initiatives and all of this stuff. And I think it really misses the point that, one, white women are the biggest benefactors of affirmative action in the States, right? The reason that we have policies that hopefully foster equity are not to give minorities an unfair advantage. Right?
Yeah.
And if we speak about these programs, if we speak about diversity initiatives as if they are giving unworthy people a chance, the conversation is derailed from there. 100%. So I'm not terribly inclined to even engage in conversations of the merits because I know the merits merit. Right.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't necessarily want to lend credence to arguments that devalue the importance of these programs, of needing to have diverse voices in the room. Have you heard of the ketchup example?
What? No, go
the
for it.
ketchup example?
No, go.
I'm going to butcher this, and I hope this never reaches the person who originally said it. So it was, you know, there's a black engineer at Twitter. I think at the time he was the only black engineer at Twitter.
Right.
And he did this interview, I think, on Search Engine or whatever the iteration of the podcast was before. And he was saying, you know, if you live in the Northeast of the United States and you have ketchup, you probably keep it like in the cupboard because it's cold enough, right? Next to like the vinegar and whatever.
Yeah.
If you live in the Southeast of the United States, you probably keep your ketchup in the fridge because like you're practically living on the sun. It's hot. You need to keep it cold. So it might be next to mayonnaise if you're a person that likes mayonnaise. Yeah. So if you're making a sandwich and you run out of ketchup, you're going to reach for the next closest thing, right? So if you live in the South, you're going to reach for the mayonnaise. If you live in the North, you're going to reach for the vinegar. Now, what happens if you have a group of engineers in a room and everyone's from Boston? And you run out of ketchup.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to reach for the same solution.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to reach for the vinegar or everyone's going to reach for the mayonnaise. So what you need to do is you need to have people from different backgrounds 100%. Who problem solve in different ways, making that conversation richer, more productive, and getting you closer to your solution faster, right? That's the conversation I want to have about diversity. It's not about whether...
Yeah, exactly. Have you read Matthew Syed's Rebel Ideas? Right. So this is, for me... He nails it. He nails the whole problem. So he basically makes a story of that the Twin Towers. We all know what happened there and whatever.
What happened?
What people don't talk about is the 6 years previous, I think it was, where they had a video and they had a guy with a long beard in a cave dressed really shabbily with, just looked on a really dodgy video, quoting poetry, basically describing what was going to happen. The general consensus of the middle class white guy, they all dismissed it as some crazy guy in a cave.
Okay.
That was Bin Laden.
Yeah.
So the reason why they dismissed it is they didn't have diverse thinking.
Okay.
So they had this echo chamber of a load of white guys together going, oh yeah, he looks like an idiot. What do you think, Bob? Oh, he looks like an idiot. What do you think, John? Or I think, isn't it? So there's nobody, that echo chamber, they make the decision collectively because there's no diverse thinking of people with different backgrounds or anything like that. So they dismiss it. When obviously what happened, and when it went back, they realized they had all the warning signs there. What they didn't realize that to the Middle East, he was dressed like a prophet. The fact that he was speaking poetry was the highest level of communication, which is poetry. The way he was dressed, him being even in the cave would say he was in a place of prayer. So if you were from the Middle East and you had been part of that team, you would have gone,
you'd clocked it.
You got to listen to everything this guy's saying because he's deadly serious. So what's happened now in the CIA, for example, is they say now they have done a massive push to have people that if there are people working with Middle East, that there's enough Middle East people in that team to understand the context and the culture. Yeah. So and he uses another one where I don't know if there's a film on Netflix called Everest. I don't know if you Everest. And basically what happened is there was a group of guys that you pay £10,000, you can go to the top of the mountain. I'm not sure you would do that, but no, well, he's an experienced climber. They've been up to the top or whatever, but they got mega rich people paying here's $10,000, take me to the top. Right. Yeah. And they go to the top and the whole, I think maybe 2 out of 8 come back. And the reason why they come back, he says this statement: no one's to question me on this mountain because I am the most experienced. So when they're going up, there's a meteorologist that could work out that these clouds are so bad, but was so in fear of what the guy said, refused not to say anything. Yeah. And so the thing with the Rebel Ideas points make is if you don't have diverse thinkers in the team from various different backgrounds and cultures, you will make heinous mistakes. And so as a book, it's brilliant because when you're talking about diversity and you're talking about inclusion and stuff, I'm like going, read that book. It's not even talking about race. It's just saying, listen, it's get the context of wherever you're at, and as you said, you solve the solution based on what's around you. But if you've not got diverse thinkers,
I mean, and it doesn't even have to be as high stakes as like dying on Everest, or this is why one of our space shuttles blew up, right? Because there wasn't the ability in the team to even speak up because of that kind of like hierarchy. But even like low stakes things, right? So I think it was like Amazon.
Well, this is where we want to take it to, like the everyday.
Yeah. Well, like I think it was Amazon or one of these companies was testing the concept of like the no checkout supermarkets, right? And it was just like they did this focus group and people were coming in and they were just like, you just like pick up and the cameras will scan and you can walk out. And all the black people were like, we are not going to walk out of this shop without someone knowing we paid, because we would be the ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you see advertising campaigns all the time, like that H&M campaign with the little boy, the little black child. And I think he was wearing like a sweater with like a monkey on it. And it's like, if you have people in the room that can say, hey guys, there are a lot of really bad racial connotations to that. These are the things that normalize diversity of thought, normalize diversity of experience. So it's not like you have people getting really upset because they see a mixed family in a cereal commercial. Yeah. And I think that's where it starts, right? So before we even get up into like the corporate hierarchies and is this a tick box and whatnot, we actually need to get to a point where people are not offended by the existence of people who do not look like us.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think for me that, like having run multiple sports teams in my life, like I turn up and I turn up to a football match where 8 out of the 11 are black, and then playing against an all white team, and you can feel it from the get-go. You can see it with the referee. I mean, we had one guy, incredible player, but every time we had him as a referee, he would get booked in the first 2 minutes. and it was a control thing, and we knew it. We all knew. You go, watch this. He's going to get booked, and he's made one tackle. He's half won the ball. Yellow card. I mean, like, hang on a second, rep. It's like 2 minutes into the game. We've watched it happen, and I'd say, you know, for me, it's like I've been on the side of that whole diversity of thought, and I'm very aware of it, like bringing in as many different voices as possible to make a decision. But I've also been on the receiving end, not because of my colour, but essentially going into a football environment where my team are essentially, oh, who do you think you lot are? And then experience that blatant, like, this is unfair. This is a game. This is a control thing. It's not. This guy is a great player. He's working really hard, but you're almost controlling our main player because you can.
I can't tell you how many times I've been like on a panel or giving a keynote or something, and I have a thick enough skin so that when this happens to me, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. But I don't like it happening to other people. Where people will be like, oh, can you get me a cup of coffee? Or, oh, like the way people talk to me is wild. And then they see me walk up on stage and you can see their face drop. And that is nuts. You know, I was nominated for a couple tech awards a few years ago. I was the only woman of color nominated on my own. I was the only woman of color nominated twice. I was the only person in the program whose bio and headshot were wrong.
Wow.
And people kept on asking me who I work for. And the, you know, tall white person standing next to me, what kind of company they run.
Wow. So how do you, I mean, obviously, because if you're experiencing that, how do you get over that from the point of, because it's very easy. I'm not saying you are, right, but it's very easy to then come across as a victim, you know, because you almost like, I'm just being picked on all the time here. How do you flip that and go, well, no, I'm bigger than this, and how do you address that? Because if you're getting that on a daily basis, it must feel quite like, oh, again.
I mean, I'm in a beef with Morrison's at the moment. They probably have my picture in the back somewhere because like their staff kept following me around,
on the website,
and it's like, I'm not the one stealing cans of tomatoes, right? So, so I think one, you know, if someone's a victim of something, then they are a victim of something. I personally don't like to victimize myself because I just like want to have more fun on a day-to-day basis than that. I don't think that you do get over it though. I think there are things that you maybe don't accept but know are going to happen. Everyone has a different tolerance for what they are able or willing to endure, and I would never speak to anyone else's experience or even prescribe what works for me for them. You know, if I feel safe enough, I will really be like, I'm not sure why you're speaking to me like that. If I don't, I don't. You know, I almost jumped into the river one day because some stranger came up to me and immediately tried to put their hands in my hair. And they were so familiar with me that everyone around thought that they knew me, and I was ready to jump out of my skin and run away, and I couldn't advocate for myself in that situation. So and in that situation, I mean, I don't want to use the word victim, but in that situation, I was being violated. And in that situation that I've been in the past, when I have advocated for myself, oh, it's not that bad. They didn't mean it. Oh, it's just because your hair is so pretty. Right?
So they're minimizing the impact.
So you don't get over it. You just learn to move through the world in different ways, which...
So do you obviously, because you've been in the US or in the UK?
Well, yes, I was in the US.
Are they the same?
No.
What's the difference?
Am I allowed to speak freely?
Of course you can. It's going on the podcast. but what I'm saying is, you know, is it worse in the US or is it worse in the UK? What do you feel?
I think it's better in the US because racism is more overt. People will say it to your face. Here they won't. So you don't always know what's going on. And
so it's subtlety.
It's insidious. So I would rather know why someone's being hostile to me.
You just up front, just tell me like it is.
Than here,
rather than smile,
where there's like plausible deniability, and then you are left feeling kind of crazy. So
that's the big difference between. That's interesting. And do you feel like, we talked about corporates at the start, but you obviously work with a lot of SMEs as well. Do you feel with the SME market and working with entrepreneurs and business owners, they're a lot more aware than say a corporate company is?
I think corporate companies have more structure in place to work with and around these issues, and that's definitely changing now for the worse. But I think that a lot of times people idealize like the startup economy and as if it's this bastion of equality, and it's not. It's really not. And I think that you have a lot more influence by the leadership than you would in a corporate environment where it's just kind of like flattened and spread out a little bit more. So I think people are aware. Whether that makes people act better, I wouldn't say that.
So you're obviously championing the emerging talent coming through, and ultimately, have you got any success stories that you could share, like people that you've actually worked with and seen them get to where they need to get to? So
it's so funny. I led a focus group the other day, and I was really tired, and I was kind of like, I wanted to be there, but I was just kind of depleted. And someone came into the group, and I introduced myself, and they were like, "Oh, I remember you." And I was like, "Oh God, hopefully from somewhere good." And he's like, "No, you came in and gave a talk or something like that, and you said something that changed my life." And I was like, "Oh no," because I never stop talking. It could have been anything. And he was like, "You said that perfectionism is a trauma response." And it changed how I relate to my art. Wow. And I was just like, I don't remember ever being that smart, but thank you. And it's, it's things like that. I ran one of the first incubators I ran. I had a one-on-one session with one of the cohort, and we were talking about work, obviously, but then I was just kind of like, I wanted to know what her support structure was around her. And she was talking about her partner at the time. And I was like, you know what, like, taking my coach hat off, just a little bit of advice, like, make sure you guys dream together, make sure you guys have like a relationship plan and things you want to achieve together, and all this stuff, and I gave her some like ideas for how they might open up that conversation, just so that they were on board, because it can be a very lonely road. And especially for a woman, if you have any kind of ambition, you need to like make sure that you've got a supportive partner and all of that stuff, and also be able to be a supportive partner. And a couple months later, she was like, "That conversation was so amazing, and we're engaged now," and it just like changed like the tenor. And so it's less like, "Oh, I went and raised a bunch of money," which happens too, but it's like that stuff where people like feel like more alive and more integrated into their life and more able to sit and be happy in their life, and whatever's going on with the business is going on.
And that's great, because that gets forgotten, right?
It does.
I mean, you're building a business, and it always all consuming, and the temptation is to let's talk about work and every working hour. And I think maybe certainly my days, I think I was probably more the one that would talk about work a lot. Now Claire, my wife, is heavily involved with the ops of our brand agency. It's sometimes the other way. It's like, let's just not. Because I then feel compelled to solve the problem and dive in, and then before I know it, 2 hours have gone, and it's like, no, then I'm working again, right? So you got to be mindful of it. So talk about some of the brands that you've been working with, because obviously you've got this passion, you've got this cause, you've got this thing, but does that inform who you work with as
100%.
well? So what sort of brands are you working with?
There was a period like 10 years ago where I kept on getting the same kind of inquiry. Like, people wanted the same kind of structure website with the same kind of header and the same kind of copy. And I was like, how are you people finding me? Because one of the reasons I even started the company was because it was at the time where travel blogging was really big, and everyone's sites looked the same, and everyone was doing the same thing, and it was just so boring. And so I started interrogating people that were coming to me like, how are you finding me? And it was at the heyday of like, Marie Forleo and all of this stuff, and like, you want to become a coach to sell people on being a coach and all of that stuff. And at that point, I was like, I do not want to work with people who do not have a compass for what they're doing. And at that point, I was like, I want to work with people who run passion-based businesses. I want to work with people who are building things, who are doing things, who are helping people. And it can sound a little bit naive and Pollyanna-ish, but it changed my relationship to work as well, because I was like, hey, I get to work with nonprofits. I get to work with charities. I get to go in and lecture at universities. I get to work with people who are like, I want to make a change. I don't want to just make money. I want to make a change. And I work with some big corporations, and I'm under NDA, so I can't say it, but being able to work with those people allows me to work with a smaller environmental agency, right? It allows me to work with.
But that's cool, because I think for me, it's like we would say we want to work with businesses that want to make impact. And as soon as they say I want to make as much money as possible, I already see the red flag.
It's so
because I know what comes behind that. And probably about 4 steps down the line is, let's just rinse our people or fire them if they're not producing, right? So you begin, and that's what experience gives us. But I love what you said. I want to work with companies that want to change, want to make change. And for me, that's the business is a cause. It's not a call to action. It's a cause. And so for me, it's like, that's what I get great joy out, is working with those types of people. Say, how do we help you get that cause out there to inspire enough change that changes communities,
and have enough energy once you get it out there and do the change that you can enjoy that impact that you made.
And I think that comes from working with the type of people that got conviction. Because conviction goes beyond circumstance. It's like there's something that drives you a lot more than, the pandemic comes, okay, we're done. No, they then double down. Well, we got to help more people then, and that's the type of people that we want to work with. And obviously you're doing the same, so that you attract the brands that you want to work with, because those are the things that you champion, which is amazing. So what, out of all those things then, so you're doing like multiple different things. is there one thing that you enjoy the most, or is it no, I just love being so busy and every day's different? You
know how books find you at the right time? Like, you can have something on your shelf for years, and like you're just like, oh, maybe it's not. I don't feel like picking it up. And then when you do, you're like, there are like 3 things that happened in your life that you're like, yes, this was it. This was the right time. I'm lucky enough. This is a luxury, but like I'm lucky enough to like have allowed my professional interest to buoy me in that way. And sometimes I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements, and that feels really fulfilling. And then like almost like at the edge of that, where I'm like, I don't want to leave my house again. I'll get like a really interesting branding client, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love doing this, and then I might get to that edge again, and then I get like this piece of research that I got to conduct, mapping the artist and cultural sector in the west of England, and I don't know what the universe is doing. I don't feel like I'm controlling that all the time. So no, I can't say there's a favorite, because I'll get to like another season and I'll be like, oh, I want to tend to these roots. I want to help this tree grow. I want to, and knock on wood, it's worked out so far. I'm sure I'll have to make a plan.
But the good thing is that you talked about roots, because the guy that we had on before, Dan, he was talking about roots as well, that you have the roots in the right place ultimately is producing the right fruit. And I think for me, that's ultimately is that the focus is I want to do good. The focus is I want to help people. The focus is I want to not leave someone from there to there. I think for me, what I love, that there are different seasons that you do, like speaking on stage, exactly that. You'll speak like 5 weekends in a row, and then you go, oh, I don't want to speak.
Nobody wants to hear my voice ever again.
Because I'm there all the time. I hear what I'm saying. I think I did 2 speaking gigs this week. And by the end of it, you're like, does take it out of you, though, does it? So for me, I love doing the podcast because I get to meet so many different people. Sit here and chat. You get the list, and you're like, oh, okay, that's going to be a busy day. But it re-energizes me, and I think that's the key thing. That if you're doing the right thing, it
fills the cup.
It's like powering you up.
100%. So even if you're dreading at work, going in, because like how sometimes that happens. Like, what have I said yes to? And then you come out like full of beans, and you're like, and then 6 months later, someone's like, you changed my life. It's great. So we've done a bit of the past. We've done about the present. What's the future look like, Bobbi? Oh gosh, I'm. So like I said, I was not put on this earth to suffer.
Yeah. So you want to have fun.
I'm deeply committed to not suffering.
Yeah.
Obviously, things with the startup are going to change the dynamic of what I can do on a day-to-day basis. So having the agency at a point where I can just hire someone and give someone much younger than me, a chance to break into tech would be really cool.
Yeah.
So that I can then pivot and focus on the other things that I need to be doing. But I don't overly identify myself with work.
Yeah.
I really try not to do that. And, for me, what the future holds is like being able to wake up with a sense of peace.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And not be like, oh my God, what do I have to do? What do I have to do today? But oh, I get to work on this and I get to work on this and can go walk the dog for an hour and a half and not feel like
people pay millions looking for peace.
Yeah. And so, of course I want the businesses to be successful. Right. Of course I don't even actually care if I leave a legacy or anyone knows my name anymore, but I want the businesses to be successful. I want the businesses to do good, but more than any of that, I want to just feel like I was joking with my sister this weekend, your purpose is not to increase shareholder value. You have to want something more than that,
Yeah.
So I want to be able to look back on my life when I'm 90 and be like, that was a really good time.
Yeah.
I did some cool stuff. I jumped out of planes.
Climb mountains.
Made some beautiful brands, changed some lives, and now I'm sipping on my wraparound porch, drinking my tea. It's great.
Awesome. So, in terms of any advice that you can give someone that wants to get into the world of tech, if you've got any 5 pointers, let's see if there's 5 pointers that you could give someone that might think they're not good enough to get into tech, or it's blocked because they're a person of color. Have you got 5 key little tips that you could give? They don't have to be long.
Yeah.
Just
nobody feels good enough.
Yeah.
I don't think I believe
that's a good point.
Yeah. Nobody feels good enough. A lot of people, if you dig in and talk to them, even really, really high up, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And recognizing that.
So let's go number one. Number one, no one feels good enough, no matter what level. Everyone feels like they're
kind of like, ooh, who let me drive this car?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be able to be very clear and honest with yourself about what your relationship to work is and what you want it to be. If you want to work 18-hour days because that fills you up, because there are some people like that, then do that.
Yeah.
If you don't, that path leads nowhere good.
But that's a key point, because there are people that do want to work 8 days. But if you want to do that, chances are you're not going to have the norm, because that is exceptional, right? So you might not have marriage, kids, this, that, and the other, because it's going to be unsustainable if you're doing that over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
Because first and foremost, you're going to probably burn your own self out trying to be there for everybody else on top of that. Yeah. So 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 the first one is no one feels good enough. The second one is be clear on what you really want.
Be clear on what you really want.
Third one.
I think that you have to have something outside of yourself.
Yeah, that's cool.
To care about.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I think we think too much about ourselves.
Yeah.
We do a lot of navel gazing, me especially. I think you have to have something else that is not so focused on where the time is going to pass anyway, right? So if you're constantly looking at what's 10, 15 years ahead, you might get there. You might drop dead of a heart attack before you get there. You might get there though. And then there's no one around.
Yeah.
You don't have any interests.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do then?
Yeah.
A lot of people report being really unhappy when they retire because they just have nothing.
Correct.
Else.
There's that identity crisis, because the whole identity was in the business in the first place, and so therefore it's like the business is stopping. It's like, what is it?
What do you
and often that happens with retirement. The sort of from retirement to death.
Yeah.
The statistics are quite high.
Yeah.
I
mean, and I know nobody can afford to retire anymore, so maybe we don't have to deal with that problem. But just in case.
Yeah. No. I get you. I get that. That's so have something else.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Have
okay. That's what's that? 3.
That's
so we've got 2 more.
If we're speaking
really
specifically about people of color, women, trying to break into tech, I would say you have to have your tribe and you have to have your advocates.
Yeah.
And you have to be that for other people. So I really like the model of being in the middle of a enablement sandwich.
Yeah.
So you want to have a mentor or someone whose career ahead of you that you want to emulate, but you also need to like look behind and pull people along with you.
I like that. Look behind, because I think that's often what happens. We're so focused on us and where we're going, and everybody's now subservient to us. But I use this example that at some point in your career, your changes.
You got to where you wanted to be. Now what?
You're Mr. Miyagi or an Obi-Wan Kenobi to someone else.
Exactly.
You know, you can't be the hero in your own story all the time.
Right.
Eventually, you need to be that for somebody else.
Right. And I think it helps you, from a selfish standpoint, it helps you appreciate how much you've done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. Last one then.
Last one. This is so much pressure.
But you've done good. You've done good.
I actually had one in my head, and then it went, so you said Mr. Miyagi, and then I'm just thinking about movies. I would say that, I had a really good one, and now it's gone, and I'm going to remember it when we're done.
If it appears, we can add 6.
Yeah.
If it appears before we end. Or you have to come back. And,
I mean, I never stop talking. I would say that you are the only person you go through your whole life with. You were the only person on that whole journey with you. So especially if you're going to go into like a cutthroat, high stakes role, you really got to be your own biggest cheerleader. Like you cannot talk down to yourself all the time. I mean, people have seen the pep talks I would give myself in the morning, and I probably look a little bit deranged, but like, you know what? I got this. I'm going to speak wonderful things into existence.
Yeah.
We're going to have a grand old time today. We're going to be silly. We're going to sing to the dog. We're going to have a good time. We're going to do some good work, because I'm going to have to do these things on my to-do list anyway. And if I'm miserable going about them, then what the hell is the point?
Well, the thing that people underestimate is words create worlds.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and if you
spiritual wealth, monetary, like all of it.
Yeah, 100%. So if you continually down on you, then the chances are you're going to feel down on life. It's as simple as that. But if you flip that, and then not only have that, and like you said, the point number 4 is have the right people around you as well, advocating that, then it can make all the difference.
I mean, I'm constantly like, when I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this, or why like I'm not good enough for this, I'll have to be like, who told me that?
Yeah.
Who told me that?
Yeah.
Do I know where that thought came from?
Yeah. Really good.
And then act accordingly.
Bobbi, it's been absolutely brilliant. It's been a real pleasure. So how do people connect with you? How do they get into contact?
Every time someone asks me for my LinkedIn, like, oh, can I reach you on LinkedIn? Not if you ever want to hear from me.
I don't use it.
Not if you want to reply.
Yeah.
I guess like the quickest way, I'm so horrifying online because it's all pictures of my dog, isn't it? It's easy to find me on Instagram. So it's Today I'm Bobbi. And I guess from there, let me know which hat you need me to wear, and I'll direct you to the right channel.
There you go. Yeah, so Instagram's the place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
No, it's fine. You know what? I'm finding it with a few people now, because I'm used to like going, oh, what's your LinkedIn? And then I've got people going up to me, I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram.
You know what I want to do? You know what I want in life? Is to like live the kind of life where I never have to open up LinkedIn again. Where I'm so far removed that I don't even know what the LinkedIn people are doing. That's the goal.
That's the goal. I mean, I spoke at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I would say 80% of the crowd were all on Instagram, and they're business owners, and they're successful, but they weren't on LinkedIn, which was a bit like, for me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, because I didn't expect it.
I don't really talk about work on Instagram, but I've gotten some of my biggest clients because they're like, we really love your dog, and then we realize that you make websites, or you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I think our biggest client, certainly one of our biggest clients we got that on a Twitter feed.
You never know.
Random, literally someone advocated us on behalf, and they've been a great client of ours for many, many years. So you just don't know. So just keep doing what you're supposed to do, and even if it's taking pictures of dog pictures, and people will get in touch. Thanks so much, Bobbi. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your openness and your honesty and sharing your journey. It's been really, really good.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.